SJR1 by Huffman, proposing a Constitution amendment requiring the denial of bail for an illegal alien charged with an offense punishable as a felony.
Mr. Smithy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, there was a point of order called on the amendment on the last time up, and so I believe that we've fixed that problem. So at this time, I'll offer the amendment.
Following amendment, the clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Smithy.
Mr. Smithy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All I'm trying to do here is to try to meet some of the objections that were raised earlier by making clear that this does not apply to DACA recipients, primarily to anybody on deferred action, or to T or U non-immigrant status individuals. And it narrows that. It also takes the term illegal alien out. Some people had a problem with that. So all we're trying to do is just make sure that we protect the public safety.
Mr. Speaker,
Is there for a purpose?
will the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentleman here for questions?
I'll yield.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Representative Smithy. I'm looking at page 2 of the amendment.
Yes.
Your sections, 6, 7, and 8,
Yes.
where you're striking illegal alien and substituting person. Can you
Yes.
tell me what that change is doing there?
Well, what we did is instead of defining the term illegal alien like it was done in the original version, what we did is we simply did an applicability provision in the resolution that specifies who this section 11E is of the Constitution, Article 1, applies to, and so there is an applicability section that details who is subject to this section.
Okay, so the bill is still narrowly targeted at immigrants in particular.
No, it's
this
not.
amendment.
It's not
Okay.
immigrants. It's just people who are in this country without any legal authorization whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, will gentleman yield for questions?
Yield for questions?
Yes.
Yields for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chair Smithy. I think in your original amendment, I'm just looking at this for the first time. I think in your original amendment, you sought to leave out DACA individuals. Are you doing that in this?
Yes, it would remove from the applicability anyone who has a lawful presence in this country under either a deferred action program or else under a T or U status as a non-immigrant.
And with regard to TNU status, you're referring to visas?
Well, it's a limited type of visas. It's visas for, I think T applies to trafficking victims, and U, as I recall, applies to other victims of other crimes.
Okay. Thank you.
And they are legally in the country with what is typically in those situations a 4-year temporary visa that, as I understand, can be extended.
Thank you.
Okay. I would move adoption of the amendment.
Mr. Smithy sends up an amendment. A strict enforcement request has been made. So vote for yourselves from your desk. Record vote. Clerk, ring the bell. Strict enforcement. 100 voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 93 ayes, 30 nays. The amendment is adopted. Mr. Smithy. Does anyone wish? Oh, Mr. Romero in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we all know we've been here before, and I'm not going to speak too long on this. just to say that I said a couple of days ago, I'm going to continue to be in the defense of the immigrant community that I know and I live in, the only community that I've ever lived in. And whether or not we acknowledge it or not, the chairman and I have had a couple of discussions about his intent, and I understand he's made this about one little girl or the potential of a half dozen or a few, but in that process, a lot of folks are going to be tied up in this that will be members of my community. Refusing to accept that this kind of legislation is a continued attack on the minority community and all communities of color and our communities, where racial profiling is a reality, where a young man may get pulled or may get stopped just simply for jogging and not carrying his ID. And I can say that it offends me because this has happened to my own son. No parent wants to get that call from their child that their child is in jail because you know that police officer racial profiled him, thought he was an illegal. You don't have your ID, so I'm taking you to jail. And laws like this, and putting this before the public and asking them to go out and vote so you can throw away the key when some undocumented person ends up in jail. That hurts our communities. You know, and I know that it hurts me when I hear people use people's names when somebody's a victim. And there's a victim that somebody isn't talking about. Through this types of attack on the immigrant community, you know, y'all see Instagram, y'all see people getting picked up everywhere, regardless of whether or not they're undocumented or not. And U.S. citizens are being attacked by law enforcement because they look like somebody else. Chairman Smith, a minute ago said, well, you know, this is about MS-13 or Tren de Agua or whatever. And I said, well, unfortunately, I look more like some of those people than you do. So I may suffer the consequences more than you will. But when you think about the people that suffer, you know, there was a young lady from Gainesville in Representative Spiller's district. It was getting bullied because of the actions of politicians that changed their life. Jocelyn Rojo Carranza took her own life because people were bullying her in her school because they said, your mom's going to get deported. And now they're going to see mailers saying, go out there, go vote. Make sure these illegals get put in jail, locked up, never give them bail. But yet some little kid's going to see that mailer and said, yeah, that must be your family. This is an attack on a community that I know to be innocent. Jocelyn Rojo Carranza took her own life because she was getting bullied at school. So when we think about that little girl, let's think about both of them. I ask you to vote no, or white light it, or walk away from your desk. We've already been here. We did SJR1. We did 287G. Vote no.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentlemen, yield for questions? No. Ms. Lopez of Cameron.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'm licensed to work with trauma victims and survivors, whether it's suicide, car accidents, rape, child abuse, homicide, hurricanes, etc. In addition, I've spent the past 16 years sitting across from survivors, men, women, and far too many children who have endured the unimaginable. I come to you as someone who hears the pain behind closed doors that most of you will never witness. I'm here today to speak in support of SJR1 because of clients, because of the victims of trafficking, sexual abuse, violent assault, and exploitation. The trauma does not end when the crime is committed. It resurfaces again and again, especially when their abuser walks free while awaiting trial. when someone accused of crimes like capital murder, aggravated assault, or continuous trafficking is released on bail, especially someone who is at risk of fleeing. Victims live in a constant state of fear, not healing, not recovering, surviving, just barely. This resolution does not strip away the rights of an individual. It doesn't call for judgment without due process. It demands only that when a judge finds probable cause that an individual committed one of these deeply violent, life-shattering crimes, that person be held until trial. That's not cruelty, that is protection. I've counseled young children who can't sleep at night, who scream at the sight of a stranger because the person who hurt them was seen in their neighborhood again. I counseled a 10-year-old that was traumatized and couldn't speak because of the trauma. Or the adult survivor that was raped at 10 years old and still living the trauma every day in his 60s, and sees the perpetrator at HEB or at the gas station. I've worked with trafficking survivors who drop out of therapy entirely the moment that they hear their trafficker was released. This is not hypothetical. This is happening. It's real here in Texas. As a trauma therapist, I can tell you this: the justice system is not just about punishing the guilty, it's also about safeguarding the vulnerable. SJR1 is a step toward that safety that they need. You have an opportunity today to say to every survivor, every terrified child, every parent clinging to hope, you matter, your pain matters, your safety matters. I support SJR1, and I hope you do too, and stand with those who can't always speak for themselves, but who desperately need your voice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Mr. Lauterbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, let's talk victims for again. Let's talk for just a second. Elizabeth Medina out of Edna was a high school cheerleader. 2 years ago, was brutally murdered by an illegal alien. The thing that I haven't heard today much spoken about is a person from another country is what's referred to in law enforcement as a flight risk. Is a flight risk because they're not from this country. So in the overall scheme of things, as we're looking to hold someone accountable for criminal activity and criminal violence that's taking place here in our country, in our state, in our local communities, in your community, right now, this is what's going on. It's about the victims. It's about the families. It's about the brothers and sisters and the grandmothers that have to face the fact that a person here who has committed an egregious offense, a violence offense, is going to possibly go to the other country. So it is about preserving for trial and keeping them here. So I ask you today, think about the victims here in our state on an ever-increasing number that's coming about. Always remember, to be your family member, be a part of your family, part of one of your good friends, always consider that.
Mr. Smithy to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Not trying to be hateful here, not trying to be prejudicial here. Unfortunately, crime in terms of victims knows no color or ethnic group. It can affect any of us. Similarly, any person, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what the color of their skin is, can be a perpetrator. There's nothing here that discriminates against anyone. It only applies to people who have no lawful right to be in our country, And it only applies, and look at the list here, rapists, murderers, human traffickers, drug dealers, child molesters. Are these the type of people anybody wants to vote to protect? Is this who we want to vote to try to protect? And look who we are protecting in this. We're protecting, as I said, that little girl, that one little girl, but also little boys, grandmothers, grandfathers, fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters. Hopefully it's not any of our family members, but you never know where it's going to hit next. None of these families expected to be victims. And so, members, I would just urge you to dig in deep into your soul today and do what's right. And I would ask that you would vote for that one little girl, because I can tell you, if we're able to save one human life, it doesn't really matter who it is. If we can save one human life by virtue of sending this amendment to the voters for their approval, it will be worth it. And so I would ask that you vote aye to adopt the resolution. Thank you.
Members, strict enforcement has been requested. It's a record vote required by the Constitution. Clerk, ring the bell. Mr. Smithy voting aye, Mr. Romero voting nay. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 87 ayes, 39 nays, fails to adopt. Members, we're going on to the items